Democrats expressed horror over the images of agents on horseback chasing migrants in swinging leather reins.
It is outrageous. I'm pissed.
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president. To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped.
Like, do we need to hear the words, "I don't know," more often from health officials and CDC officials?
As a public health official, I think you need to have a healthy degree of humility.
These are clowns. These are people that are just saying on TV to draw attention to themselves.
He gave me a shirt. It says just little Jerry Callahan. They call him LGC.
Well, of
and
course.
He's got a chicken. There's a picture. I thought it was a rooster because, chickens are
female, I think, are female.
You there, Alice?
I'm here. Chicken update time.
Hold on, my friend. I'm just tweeting, Alice. Sorry, guys. I'll be right there with you. Hold on, Matthew Sweet.
All right. Trying to get us kicked off YouTube, I assume, here.
All right, fellas, ladies, gentlemen, how are you all? I hope all is going well. I am feeling great. I'm having a good time. I've got my beers lined up here, starting with Alice, a Michelob Ultra Gold.
Great.
Organic.
Low carb.
Lager. Correct. And then the two after it are not necessarily low carb, but that's it. And then
I see the word barrel on that.
Burn Barrel beer. Ooh.
Wait, is it Burn Barrel beer?
No, it's Bourbon Barrel beer.
Bourbon Barrel, that's what
we need to get Burn Barrel beer. What the hell am I thinking?
Didn't Tim make us a Burn Barrel beer? I think he did.
You're kidding me.
I think Tim made us a Burn Barrel beer a few months ago.
Oh, we gotta check. Tim,
we need to enter a licensing agreement
that might
with
have
Tim.
been 11 Bourbon Barrel beers in for me, so that I barely have that memory. We gotta refine that.
Okay.
What else did I ask you to remind me of today?
I don't know what else you asked me to.
I asked you to remind me definitely something I wanted to talk about. Anyway, we got so much to get to. I'm so excited. I am feeling good. I think I'm looking good. I don't care what you say.
You look fabulous
you know
as
what?
always, honey. As always. That's
Thank
a great
you.
color on you.
You look great.
Fantastic.
Alice, what was I going to say today when I was thinking about you? Oh, yeah, I have your Carabiner. Do we need that out there?
Not right this second.
Okay, I went to the Carabiner store.
What's the Carabiner store?
That's the hardware store, the True Value hardware store. Do you want to sign up for True Value Rewards? And every time I go to cash register, and one time I said yes, and she handed me a long form. And I said, holy God, please destroy that. No, our relationship is never getting past this. All right, so I'm scattershot, I feel, Alice. But this time...
You're a little crazy today, but that's good. But
I'm thrilled. I'm crazy happy, and I feel great. And this is good. That is very important. Because last week, at some points, I felt like I had been thrown out of an airplane.
Really?
It's just a figure of speech I made, Alice. No,
okay.
I was pretty sure I hadn't been. Okay. So we should probably start back with some of the stuff that the Biden administration has talked about. We talked about towards the end of the week last week. Unbelievably, I don't even understand. We said to ourselves, you guys and us, and we've been messaging back and forth, that what is this administration going to do? Are they going to really propagate this lie that the Border Patrol used whips and then just whipped and then, what did Biden say they did? Strapped, yes. Some people at the border because they've run out of options at the border and explanations. They've just run out of them. Matter of fact, we're going to play Jen Psaki here in a minute, saying essentially, if anybody has any ideas, we'll take it. So yeah. But the administration said yes, that's right. We're doing this. We're doing this. We're absolutely going to all decide together here that somebody was whipped at the border. Even though nobody was whipped, there were no whips. You've all seen the video. You've all seen the pictures. There's nothing to it. There's nothing. It's just that nothing happened. You might as well just say, somebody was, burned alive too in the shot too. Might as well just say whatever you want to. That they killed those men in the river in those pictures. Might as well.
I mean, they already said that people killed Capitol Police officers when nobody killed a Capitol Police officer. So you might as well say that.
Right, but here it's a little bit different here because here we have images, and the administration is saying based on those images, those men whipped and abused the other people in the pictures. But the pictures clearly exonerate the Border Patrol. They clearly did not use those. They did not abuse anybody. So that's why it's a little more unbelievable. We all saw this together. And the administration now is telling us, no, the opposite happened. Absolutely, the opposite happened. The administration is telling us, essentially, the 2004 World Series where the Red Sox swept St. Louis to win the World Series. No, the St. Louis won. And we're saying, what? No, we all saw that the Sox won. No, St. Louis won. Yeah, it's over. St. Louis won, and we're upset about it, as a matter of fact, and things have to change. They're doing this. They're so out of ideas that they're trying to gaslight and just create something out of nowhere. I've never seen this to this level before, ever in my life. I know politics, you distort things, and there's double-speak, and you spin for all you can, etc. But this, and now to actually condemn the Border Patrol officers down there, is unbleeping believable. So let's go through a little bit of how we got here. This is Joe Biden. Where is Joe Biden? There's all my crud.
Did you lose
your
audience?
No. Here's Biden. Here's the question, the full question and answer Biden gets about what happened at the border. Even actually just listen to the premise of the question, because she doesn't say... Well, just listen.
Mr. President, you said on the campaign trail that you were going to restore the moral standing of the U.S., that you were going to immediately end Trump's assault on the dignity of immigrant communities. Given what we saw at the border this week, have you failed in that promise? And this is happening under your watch. Do you take responsibility for the chaos that's unfolding?
This seems like a total setup question to me, by the way. This seems like a question to say, okay, you meet whoever it is. You're going to ask about this thing that happened down there? Okay, then we'll go to you first. And when she says, you talked about that you were going to end Trump's assault on humanity, whatever. She didn't say, you said that you were going to end, as you put it, Trump's assault. She just said, as a given, it was Trump's assault on people at the border. So that's fine. So she sets it up for the president.
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president, but it was horrible what to see, as you saw. To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped. It's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay.
Now, that's incredible, to ask a question about the overall border situation, the disaster, and for him to then reframe the entire thing as an assault by Border Patrol whipping people, and then strapping people, making up a new verb. There's no such thing as strapping somebody. And then saying to them, and those people will pay?
Yeah,
Is the investigation over?
Right, the investigation hasn't even happened yet. Not to mention, pretty much everyone who's looked at the photos, who's honest, including the people, by the way, who took the photos and took the video, have said that this didn't happen. Nobody was hit with anything. The people on horseback were not whipping people with reins or whips or anything else. This is just, everybody has debunked this now. It's done. There's no story here, and the administration is still saying systemic racism, those people will pay, we're going to punish them, we're never going to use horses at the border again, that's over. What are they reacting to? Because everybody already told them that this didn't happen. So pay for what?
There will be an investigation underway now, and there will be consequences. There will be consequences.
Oh.
Well, the investigation is going to be on. There's going to be already? Have we reached guilty already?
It's an embarrassment, but it's beyond an embarrassment. It's dangerous. It's wrong.
So what he's doing here is, this is why they took the question, obviously, which is obviously they knew it was coming, is he's just filling enough seconds here to gobble up the whole news cycle with his incendiary rhetoric. So he knows that that'll be the entire, these news packages generally are 2 minutes or maybe 3 minutes, depending on if somebody's doing kind of a stand-up thingy. And so he's going to gobble up a good 50 seconds of this with all this hyperbole will be in there.
It sends the wrong message around the world. It sends the wrong message at home. It's simply not who we are.
Not who we are. No, so nobody really is buying this. Anybody who has bought this is either clinically insane, certainly, and as a psychiatrist I can say this, or is somebody who's just a political opportunist who's looking to respin. But really, you've got to, this would be a tough one for me. If I were, you are in it to win it in such a level that to be able to adequately sleep with yourself at night would be a tough one, especially since there's a victim involved, the Border Patrol people.
Well, right. And like, so here's what I don't really get, because this is, you know, I can see the political opportunism making sense if Trump is president, but how does it help to like attack Biden with this? Because, don't they like Biden?
What do you mean attack Biden?
Like, how come the left is like attacking Biden? Like, how come they're asking him like if he takes responsibility? Yes, I take responsibility.
Oh, they're pretending to be tough on him.
That America's no, I'm not saying they're being tough on him, but I mean, like, it does, just like the Afghanistan thing. It seems like not smart to me. Like, do you think this reflects well on you?
I think that it's almost an unspoken compromise between the media and the White House, is that they'll position it in a harsh way that shows they're really doing their job. Biden will rhetorically, momentarily, for just a moment, take ownership for just a moment by saying, "Of course I own it." There you go. See?
Well, yeah, same like he did with Afghanistan.
Well, and then that flag's planted. He can move on to the messaging they want. Mm-hmm. What we saw was horrific. What did they do to them?
Strap them.
The strapping that we saw. And
they nearly ran them over.
You're right. They nearly ran them over, pushed them into the sea, and that's not who we are. That's not who we are, et cetera, et cetera. It's just the same way as Obama, after Benghazi, said, you know, terrorism in any light is yada-da-da-da. He used the word terrorism. He put the flag that said terrorism in there. Mm-hmm. So that way, he could, when called on it later, say he said terrorism. Yeah. So when Romney called him on it and said, "You're saying that this was the fault, that a video caused this," Obama could say, no, I said terrorism.
I said the word.
The word is in there. If you do a little control
F
search.
And Biden can say, like, I took responsibility, just like he could say, I took responsibility for Afghanistan, in between blaming literally everybody else.
Absolutely.
But it still, like, happens on his watch. So, like, this is his border patrol. This is his border policy. And it's obviously a disaster. Like, clearly, I don't think anybody got whipped, but like the fact that they're having to do crowd control on the border at all with horses or anything else, it shows that his border policy is a failure from start to finish. So he owns this regardless, and nobody likes it. The left doesn't like it because you're having images like this. The right doesn't like it because, I mean, the latest headlines are that we've brought in now 10 to 12,000 new people that were under that bridge. And just in Del Rio, we've brought in 10 to 12,000 new people. This is a town with a population of 30,000 people. So this is, I mean, like, these people are unvetted. They haven't been vaccinated. They haven't been anything. They have, like, you know what, come back to court maybe or whatever dates. And like, then they're just going to do that. And then, I mean, the Biden administration is going to turn around and say people need vaccine passports? Like, get a life. What are we talking about right now? What are we doing here? How can you say that people need vaccine passports to go in a restaurant if, like, you're going to just let people wander into the country with no passport of any kind whatsoever? I mean, it's like the most hypocritical, insane thing. Nobody likes this border policy. So I can't imagine that the Biden administration wants more eyes on this mess right now. So I don't really understand why they're like trying to make a bigger deal of it now.
Well, no, I think they're trying to make the story the story about racism, and try to start a racist dialogue Donnybrook again. That way you get Sharpton down at the border. People are yelling at Sharpton in the border. They totally heckled him the whole time. You know, that gives you another chance. If they can heckle him, you know, maybe we've got another racist incident. They're hoping to rekindle the infernos of George Floyd. Of course, this administration, and you would think that, you know, that seems rather cynical. Well, I don't give a flying F. They thought last year was great. By the way, thank you, by the way. I tweeted out that we were coming on live because we're live on Patreon right now. And on Twitter, Live Dead Fan said, ordered, will wear it, I'm in. Plus, I'm going to get a LGC shirt, too, before Corrado 86 is in a can.
I know. You got to look out for him.
So he says, ordered, will wear it proudly. Thank you, Live Dead Fan. Those of others who want to follow us on Patreon, we appreciate it. Thank you so much. And you guys who have been with us since the beginning, who don't want to and have better things to do with your, what is it, a month?
It's it's $5 to get all the extra content. It's $10 if you want to be in on the live streams.
Oh, okay. Those of you who don't want to do that but who've been with us since the beginning or just don't want to do that because you have better things to do with your $5 or $10, I understand, believe me. We appreciate you being here as well. So, this is so, I love this now. I was at one point thinking last week of just joining the Taliban. I thought, you know what, enough of this, and I could lead their charge to make things more equitable for women and girls, Yeah,
that's important to them, I've heard.
Yeah, did you see the Taliban statement that they just put out?
The one about the executions and the removing hands, or a
yes.
different one?
Yes,
okay, that one.
Statement. It has been condemned by Ned Price, by the way, who said, we don't like the fact that you're proudly going to be doing more torture and amputations of people who piss you off. But the Taliban has said they're going to. But that's fine. Everything's absolutely...
Well, I don't know why they would disrespect us like that. We're a very respected superpower with a lot of allies that very strongly back us when we condemn things. So I can't imagine why they think it's okay that they would, not listen to us when we issue these strongly worded statements.
They must not have heard about the historic airlift,
Yeah, we did a really historic airlift.
Maybe they should start selling T-shirts about the historic airlift. Give them to the Afghanis, to the Taliban. Don't give out the phone number. So this is why this is so great.
You know what? Give people the phone number to
860-522-9842. I think there may be some kind of doctor on right now. Just yell at him. So here, this is why this is so great. So last week, Alexander Mayorkas, who's the head of the Department of Homeland Security, kind of a big job, he's such a perfect bureaucrat. He initially stood up for the Border Patrol, of course, because that's what you would do, and also because he's been down there, and what the Border Patrol were doing on their horses with their reins and the other stuff was all really great. They did a great job, and they should be applauded. He didn't know last week that the administration was unbelievably going to create a news story out of the horses. So last week he said nice things. He defended them. But then just a day later, he condemned them, the horses and the Border Patrol people, etc. So Peter Doocy asked him about that.
Just to go back, please, to the images of these mounted Border Patrol officers. You said on Saturday, or rather on the 20th, to ensure control of the horse, long reins are used. The person who took these photos of the Border Patrol agents says, I've never seen them whip anyone. So why is the president out there today talking about people being strapped?
So let me correct the statements in your question, if I may. It was on Friday. No, if I may. It was on Friday when I was, actually it was on Monday, I believe, when I was in Del Rio on the ground. And I made the statements without having seen the images. I saw the images on the flight back, and I made the statement that I did with respect to what those images suggested.
Images suggested. So the first time, he didn't even see the images. So he defended without seeing anything at all. He didn't. So based on nothing, he had a strong defense. So then, imagine having to be him when they tell him, you got to go out there and condemn it now. And he said, but I already defended them. They said, no, you got to go out there and condemn it. So he has to condemn it. So now he has to explain to the press why he defended them on day one, and then later on day two, condemned.
He's the new Rochelle Walensky.
Right. So now he's going to go out there and say, well, the first time I was completely irresponsible and not thorough because I didn't see any pictures. And the second time, I saw the images and I saw the feeling that they expressed. Mm-hmm. So after seeing, so in other words, he's reacting to pictures now.
Yeah, maybe the first time he was speaking in his personal capacity and not as Homeland Security or whatever border guy he is.
Right, but that's so great. He said, I saw the images in what they expressed. So he's not saying I saw the images and what they proved, but he just saw the feeling that the images emoted.
They gave him a bad feeling in his heart. They made him feel sad, so he had to then backtrack from the facts of the situation.
So now, since the photography was misleading, the Border Patrol agents now have to be punished for being photographed in a misleading way.
The horses have long reins, and the image in the photograph that we all saw that horrified the nation.
But what did the what?
It horrified the nation, honey. No, it horrified a bunch of blue check journalists and, you know, people on Twitter with little blue waves in their profiles who still tweet about how Trump is going to be in jail any minute. It horrified those people. It didn't horrify everybody else.
And Alice, what does that tell you?
The inmates are running the asylum here in the administration, and they're pretending that they're not even in charge of their own departments, their own border policy, right? Like, you know,
right? Who's in charge of the border policy?
It's like the meme with the guy in the hot dog suit trying to say we're all trying to find the person who did this. Like, this is your administration and your border and your policy and your agents. Right. You're the boss of them.
But so Alice, as just existentially now, in reality now, who's in charge of the Biden border policy?
AOC and Cori Bush and...
In a sense, but really, Twitter.
Yeah, that's true too.
That's right.
I mean...
They're seeing what happens on Twitter. They're seeing all those woke people, like the big influencers, like you just mentioned, and they're saying, oh my goodness, oh no. This is what happens.
They don't want AOC to come crying at their cages at the border.
Yes, this is what happens when you staff your staff with people 35 and under who have never lived anywhere but on the internet.
Mm-hmm.
And they're saying, oh my God, my Insta's blowing up right now.
Serious questions about let me finish, about what occurred. And as I stated quite clearly, it conjured up images of what has occurred in the past.
Conjuring up images is not a foul.
Doesn't that language reveal so much too? Because conjuring is literally like, that's religious language. That's language like you conjure up demons or you conjure something up by like casting a spell and witchcraft, right? Like, and that's how they think that this stuff works. They think that if you conjure up racism in, you know, this sort of metaphysical sense by like the language that you use or the way something looks or like feelings hidden deep in your heart, if you conjure up the racism demons or the systemic oppression demons, that like that's going to have real world impacts on real people in the real world. Like that's what they truly believe. So when they say conjure, I mean, like, I know they're just using that word because it's a word and, you know, people use it, but I think the implications of it are deeper than they mean for them to be, because I think that that's really true about how they look at the whole systemic racism thing, is that they think these sort of amorphous concepts like racism just floating in the air. You know, if you, Tom Shattuck, walk around the world and like deep inside you have some like bias that you haven't dealt with and stamped out from your heart, that's gonna like prevent a black person somewhere from getting a mortgage. They think that. You know,
well, that would explain some stuff. But I also think that if somebody like this guy might use conjure in a way because there's no way to attach. The line of like reason goes nowhere from the actual event to this offense that they've taken.
Well, yeah, but part of the like privilege magic religion, right, is that, you know, if you have people on horseback that are doing things that look racist, that can in fact actually hurt people, you know, out in America and other places. You know, like they think that really is systemic racism, and it really is actually hurting people in America right now. That, you know, like if a photo is taken that shows that, you know, you could interpret as looking like a black person being whipped by a cowboy on horseback, that like, even though that didn't actually happen, that could actually hurt like black people in America right now. I mean, they think it can. Because it conjures up systemic racism. People? Because they have to see that image. Knowing the history of systemic racism and slavery and everything else in this country, that image and it being out there and it's splashed across the headline. So, like, I'm going to argue as a progressive who believes this for a moment. Like, imagine you're a person who has to deal with the legacy of systemic oppression every day, and you have to walk by the Robert E. Lee statue, and you have to, like, be around people that you know, like, have Confederate flags, and now all of a sudden sudden, like, splashed across every newspaper when you go into your local store is this photo of, like, what looks like cowboys beating black people with whips. Like, what does that do to you psychologically and impact you as you go around the world and try and deal with, like, a deeply racist country, right? Like, it does impact you. So having these images out there, that is dangerous. Like, you can't have that. It proves that we're a racist country.
But, you know, to have those sensitivities would be something that would have to be implanted in you artificially.
Of course.
Through academia or wherever. It is nothing that anybody ever had until, for a lot of people, just last year, until they were told that they're deeply hurt by something.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's obviously, this is like exactly the type of religion that only has power over you if you let it have power over you. It doesn't need to. But if you create this universe where this is your metaphysical belief system that you truly believe and you think that it's hurting you when there's like a picture that you imagine has something to do with slavery and black people being beaten, then that can impact you because you've bought into this like whole psychological and metaphysical premise that it is hurting you.
Let me finish. There's also a question of how one uses the horse and how one interacts with individuals with the horse.
Oh my God. Can you imagine this guy saying this with a straight face? There's also the question of how one uses the horse.
Does he ride horses?
I don't know. Or how one, but I mean, you must use your horse in a non-conjuring way, if you didn't know that, by the way. That should be the
Try
first...
not to conjure any racist spirits as you
yes,
wheel
first
around.
Priority, by the way. Non-conjuring. Absolutely. That's just remarkable. Can you imagine this guy saying this with a straight face? But he's got to. So we're going to... Just wait for it. Just wait for it. Trust me. He talked today on Meet the Press. We're going to get to it in a moment. He's even more beautiful.
And so I'm going to let the investigation run its course. I'm not going to interfere.
Can you imagine the investigation running its course? Okay, and okay, done. The investigation has really, and we all know, run its course.
Right, because the investigation is woke people looking at some photos that the AP took. That's the whole investigation.
No, but the real investigation.
Oh, like
yes. That investigation has them already guilty because it conjured.
Right.
But in real life, they're just, the people inside the Border Patrol are really just looking at this saying, yeah, no, there's nobody whipped anybody.
Do Border Patrol agents have a union? I should have looked this up.
I think they do, yes.
I would bet that they do.
They ripped this guy. They did.
Government workers do.
Yes.
With that investigation, the facts will be determined by the investigators, and then the results will be driven by the facts that are determined.
And just to follow up, please, before the facts are in, is it helpful to your investigation for the President of the United States to use inflammatory language like people being strapped?
Let me just be very clear and repeat what I've said. I am not concerned with respect to the integrity of the investigation. We know how to conduct an investigation with integrity. I served as 12 years as a federal prosecutor. There were a great deal of comments in many of the cases that I handled in the public sphere, and I know how to maintain the integrity of an investigation, and this investigation will have integrity.
Absolutely. Even though 3 days ago he was pro-Border Patrol, until Biden told him you're anti-Border Patrol, and now he's anti-Border Patrol.
Look at the photos again.
But the investigation will be absolutely above board. Absolutely. The fact that the White House Biden tells him somebody better be punished, it's not going to influence him at all. His boss says that. Right. Okay. So this is, Mayorkas then jumped on. I like Mayorkas. I like him because he's a man caving in on himself. And there's a certain humanity you're seeing. I think that he's the kind of guy who didn't see this coming. Maybe I'm being too nice to him, but I don't think he thought that that he's got to be this guy who's on record as this. You're making me be the guy who's going to, because of my own incompetence. Mm-hmm. He's also the guy that after he does this, probably will be taken out for a long walk. That's it. All right, so here's him on. Oh, let me play from the beginning that we just played. Since people are asking, here's the rap from Meet the Press.
Democrats expressed horror over the images of agents on horseback chasing migrants and swinging leather reins.
How much did they work on crafting that? What were they doing, guys? What were they doing? Were they whipping? No. Look at it again. Nothing was whipped. Okay. Were they strapping? There's no such thing as that. 1, 2. It doesn't look like it. So what do they have in their hands? Leather reins?
Okay, we can work with that.
Leather's good. Leather's good. Okay. What were they doing with them? Swinging them. That's good. That's enough to conjure.
Nation has witnessed over the last 48 hours some of the most horrific things that we've seen.
This is abhorrent. It is outrageous. I'm pissed.
Of course I take responsibility. I'm president. To see people treated like they did, horses barely running them over, people being strapped, it's outrageous. I promise you those people will pay.
Oh, my goodness. So who is the guy? Who is the woman who said it was worse than slavery?
Maxine Waters.
Maxine Waters
said it was worse than slavery.
She said it was worse than slavery. I think slavery was pretty bad. If that was worse than it, then I need to rethink everything I've learned. Okay.
Well, that's why, like, the Democrats don't want anybody learning anything in school anymore. Right. Why they want to eliminate everything from the curriculum. Because if you actually know what slavery was, if you actually read some Frederick Douglass and you hear about what slavery, I think it was worse than, a horse doing crowd control somewhat near you as you try and get into a country where you don't belong. And you could totally just go home and not be near the horse at all.
They were swinging leather reins, Alice.
I don't think people are trying to get out of Africa and into slavery. I don't think that was part of.
You're conjuring again.
I don't think so. I don't think it was worse than slavery.
So this is Mayorkas Today. This is just a couple hours ago on Meet the Press with Chuck Todd. Now Chuck Todd, even though he gets destroyed on Twitter every weekend because he has a Republican on every weekend. It's an extremely progressive show. He slams Republicans through the whole show, but he has one on, usually a rhino, to just talk to see what the other side might be thinking. So they left wants him dead. Here's Chuck Todd with Mayorkas. Watch this delicate dance.
I think the entire American public, correctly and necessarily, were horrified by what the images suggested. They conjured up such a dark past.
Now the images are suggesting. See? Suggesting. Man with grocery bags in water near horse. I don't even know. I don't even know. By the way, the beating was so bad that he never lost his grocery bags.
I think they were food takeout bags.
Yes, they were.
Weirdly.
That's right.
He went out for takeout back across the river.
Things were so awful for these guys. The Haitians, things were so terrible that they were going back and forth at will.
I can't.
And even those guys, I think, got away. They ran around the horses.
Oh, yeah. A bunch of people were, getting around the horses and leaving. And by the way, what kind of standard is that for law enforcement? You have to not only, already there's so much pressure on, all kinds of cops. Not just Border Patrol agents, right? There's people running around suggesting you should be shooting people in the leg who are trying to kill you and stuff because, you have to not aim for a center of mass, which is, what's taught in every safety course ever. And there's, just they have this impossible standard of having to judge in a split second what people then spend months picking apart, how they do their jobs and everything else. But now not only do they do they have to make these split second decisions the right way and have to think about the safety of the suspect as well as all the bystanders and everything else, they also have to worry about not suggesting anything to anybody.
Yes.
Try not to, with your body language, suggest. Try not to... try and look at where the camera is that's on you of the camera angle and just make sure that you don't go in any kind of pose that might be interpreted the wrong way for that camera angle. Just, try and think about how the shot is set up and how you look in it as you're trying not to suggest anything racist with what you're doing. Right.
And now, of course, it's going to be, if you're in Border Patrol at all, and you're at all doing your job, you're conjuring up images of the famous horse strapping incident. So at all, even if you're just walking around in your Border Patrol uniform, you're conjuring and suggesting that you're about to strap somebody.
Definitely don't wear a cowboy hat. That's that's.
I can't believe that's allowed. Anyway.
I mean, but it doesn't that just show that that's what they want? Is they want zero border enforcement whatsoever?
Totally. But
anybody. I guess we should just abandon all the border posts and go home because we can't really. Nobody can do anything.
The wackos want no enforcement, and the cynical blowhard lefties like Biden are just don't want to take a political hit.
Right.
They're just thinking of X's and O's, and he and Pelosi are talking about how they can, salvage the midterms.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think the calculus they're thinking a little bit is that the people who are going to be upset that they're releasing tens of thousands of unvaccinated, unvetted, who knows what migrants into their communities, the people who are going to be upset about that already don't want to vote for Biden. But the people who are Biden voters and possibly President Harris voters next go round, the people who are those voters, they care about not enforcing the border at all. Mm-hmm. So, you don't want to lose those voters who have been crying about kids in cages for the last 5 years, and you want to make sure that you don't give them anything optically to be upset about, because you want them to be able to say, that the Republican is going to put kids back in cages and we're not, which if there's a bunch of pictures of, people being strapped and kids in cages and people hiding under bridges, it just doesn't, it's hard to make that case.
Conjuring.
So, I guess you figure that, if you just let everybody come to the U.S., the people who are going to be mad about that were going to be mad at you anyway. So you might as well make the people happy who want to abolish ICE and have no border enforcement whatsoever.
All right, so let's get back to Mayorkas here. He is now slamming the Border Patrol with Chuck Todd today for conjuring and suggesting
that we have not entirely put behind us.
Did President Biden go too far when he said those folks are going to pay? Are they guilty before they're in investigation?
Oh, absolutely not. The investigation is independent. We know how to conduct an independent investigation. I think the president echoed the sentiments of the public in terms of what those images suggest.
There is some Democrats in this town that thinks CPB is a rogue agency. What would you say to that? I'm sure you've heard that privately.
Oh, I couldn't disagree more vehemently.
You hear this? So the question was, and my daughter's very smart. This is a genius, the young lady. That is a great shakedown, Sally. Well done. She found my brother brought over a bunch of vintage candy. And she knew they've known where it was all day, so she's used the moment in the middle of the podcast to ask us.
She walked in with the candy and pointed at him and
said, "Can I have it?" Which is her way of extorting from us that she would hate. It would be unfortunate if she wasn't able to keep the peace with candy. So very excellent. So
smart move, Sally.
So now Chuck Todd asked if the Border Patrol tells Mayorkas Dems hate the Border Patrol. Should it be rethought?
I'm intensely and immensely proud of the men and women of the U.S. Customs and Border Protection. In fact, in Del Rio, Texas, I saw them act heroically. You know what those images suggest?
Wait a second. So what happened here? So now he's back. I said they're heroes. I got their backs absolutely because he's scared to death now. He's got to go to an office. Now we're back to what those images suggest. So get ready. Fire in the hole, Border Patrol. You just got a pat in the head.
This does not reflect who CBP is, who we are as a department, nor who we are as a country.
Now, the Border Patrol...
We're going to go with the same, all good cops want to get rid of the bad apple. So we're going to go with, all Border Patrol agents, hated those images as much as everybody else. And they completely agree. Anyone who's not a bad apple would think that was egregious and want the people punished. So if you look at it and you don't see a problem, then, the problem's with you. You are the issue.
Right.
The union said that they, using horseback, that is a training that they get. Are they right?
The Horse Patrol serves an incredibly important function. Horses
can
traverse terrain that might not otherwise be covered. In fact, horses are often used to not only assess a situation, but to actually help people in distress. CBP personnel have saved many lives on horseback.
My goodness, well, that's great.
So why are we getting rid of them again?
Why were you telling them that they better be careful in the way they use their horses?
Those images you think are something that, do you think those images misconstrued their actions? Do you think that it's going to turn out their actions were actually on the up and up?
The facts are going to be adduced in the investigation. The investigation will determine the facts. It's an independent one run by the Office for Professional Responsibility. In fact, I directed that the leadership of that office direct the investigation to ensure it's both integrity and quality.
No innocent man uses adduced. Mm-hmm. By the way, the facts are going to be right. Well, the facts are that nothing bad happened with the horses. So it'll be interesting. But the administration doesn't care. It doesn't. It's fine. This is just who they are now, and I don't know. That just blew me away. Okay, so do I want to get to Gottlieb or Michael Graham handed me something that I kind of want to get to too. But I don't want to screw people to my Patreon. Let me go. Okay, here's a little bit of the Scott Gottlieb thing. And I'll put Whitlock till later. Anyway, I'll have some of the stuff tomorrow if you guys are.
Ryan on Patreon, by the way, says that Carano is still a whiny, nasally biatch.
Oh my goodness!
So there you have it.
They are talking about
Straight
Matt
from the
Murchison
fans.
right there,
Yep.
Ryan. That's a good way to get canceled. Matt Murchison will be coming after you too. Got to look out. He decides what merch is acceptable and what merch is not. He is the new Murchison. Okay, let's go to the little. This is Scott Gottlieb. He used to run the CDC during Trump, and he talks a little bit about. He talks to Jessica Rosenthal of Fox News, who's actually asked a great question. And she essentially says, shouldn't the CDC just learn to tell people when they don't know what the hell's going on in retrospect?
Are the words "I don't know" really important here? Like, do we need to hear the words "I don't know" more often from health officials and CDC officials, even in the event of a future pandemic? And I get that health officials, when we're talking about a deadly virus, maybe don't want to utter those words because you don't want people to feel uncertain. I mean, the early days of the pandemic were scary, and they still are for a lot of us. But is that something that we sort of need to reincorporate, is the ability to say, look, we just simply don't know yet what to do or how to do this. We need to wait. Or do you know what I mean? Like, what's the answer what should we be relying upon if the data just wasn't there or the science just wasn't there yet?
I love that she asked this question. It was a good Tom Shattuck-like question in that it was 76 seconds long. But I love that she asked the question because from the beginning, I've been just begging somebody to say, when you don't know, just say you don't know, rather than throw us something arbitrary, because that erodes trust. And it eroded my faith from the beginning. And a lot of you guys listening, I know it eroded your faith too. We were just saying, just tell us if you don't know, because you're saying something right now that seems wishy-washy to me right now.
Look, I think you need, as a public health official, I think you need to have a healthy degree of humility when it comes to these kinds of issues and acknowledge what you know, what you don't know, and more importantly, the level of certainty you have around different judgments you're making. So when you're making advice to the public, when you're issuing advice to the public, you need to underlie that with the scientific basis for the recommendation and how certain you are. So, for example, this 6-foot distancing requirement, there was a lot of uncertainty about that, but that uncertainty wasn't communicated well. And that allows people to make individual decisions about which pieces of guidance they're going to emphasize over others to try to get the best protection in place for their families, for their communities. That's where I think it breaks down. There's a reluctance to assign probabilities and give an overall assessment of your level of certainty. There's certain things, in my view, having been in a public health role, that I think are important to do. One is what you said, talk about what you know, what you don't know, but more importantly, why you're rendering a certain judgment, what the basis is, how certain are you, how could it change, what would change your mind, what data are you waiting on, and what are you doing to gather the information that will better inform and provide more certainty. The other thing I learned to never say is don't panic. The first thing people think when they hear the words don't panic is, should I be panicking? And,
right.
And officials repeatedly said in the setting of this crisis early on, there's no need to panic. There's certain things you just, in terms of speaking to the public in an honest, candid way, that I think you don't do. And they were mistakes made early in this crisis that sapped some of the confidence in the subsequent advice and recommendations that came out.
Damn straight. He's right about that. He's right about that. And also there was incredible, this Gottlieb has been very good to listen to. He's not, I don't love him, but I really like him. I think he's got a sweet spot sometimes where he says he speaks like people. And he's a good liaison for normal human beings public health experts.
Initially, CDC approached the White House with a recommendation that people should be 10 feet apart. The White House said, we can't implement that. There's no way that we're going to be able to tell people to stay 10 feet apart. It's impractical. People can't measure 10 feet. And so the compromise was around 6 feet. Now, imagine if that had leaked out at the time that the Trump White House was telling the CDC that 10 feet wasn't practical. People would have said, well, it's the political appointees interfering in the scientific process. But
he's right. If they had said 10 feet and Trump said, no, make it much smaller, people on the left would have said 50 feet.
Yeah.
And Gottlieb,
they would have said you have to be locked in your home and not see another human being for another 100 years.
Absolutely. Now listen to what the fallout was.
The bottom line was the scientific process wasn't rigorous. It was arbitrary. CDC didn't have a good basis for the recommendation. That was the 6-foot requirement on distancing was the single costliest recommendation that CDC promulgated in the entire pandemic because it forced many schools to have to go to telelearning or hybrid models because they couldn't keep students 6 feet apart. It wasn't until the CDC relaxed the guidelines and said people can be 3 feet apart so long as they're wearing masks that many schools were able to open last spring. So the CDC didn't have the ability to operationalize the response, deploy testing at scale.
And remember, both of those don't really account for the fact that this thing travels as aerosols anyway.
Right. I mean, the whole thing was that the 6 feet didn't matter compared to 3 feet because it doesn't really matter that much at all anyway.
Deploy vaccination sites at scale. They didn't have the ability to gather information and do real-time analytics. Their information models, the way they gathered information was outdated. They had these bespoke data feeds where they modeled assumptions that they should have been able to tabulate. So, for example, when CDC early on in the crisis said there are 2,000 people hospitalized for COVID,
hear this?
They didn't know if there were 2,000 people hospitalized for COVID. What they were doing was sampling 1,000 out of the 6,000 hospitals in this country and arriving at a modeled estimate on how many people were hospitalized for COVID. But in a pandemic that's moving across the country in stages, you can either oversample or undersample hospitalizations, and that's in fact what they did. They didn't get a good estimate of how many people were being hospitalized. You would think something like how many people are hospitalized on a daily basis is something that could be reliably tabulated, yet they were unable to do it. What we needed was a JSOC, a Joint Special Operations Command for the collection and dissemination of information to inform our decisions. What we had was the Harvard School of Public Health.
Isn't that interesting? Mm-hmm. So you had all these eggheads, the Harvard School of Public Health people, essentially at the CDC, who said, we take the lead on this. Meanwhile, they didn't have the resources to take the lead. And that's why they're doing remotely spitballing, using, whatever theory they can to try to, find out the number of hospitalizations.
Mm-hmm. They're doing like methods, and when you do these statistical methods to estimate things, like he says, you can oversample or undersample, and it's the kind of thing that when you do studies, you do the study as best you can, and you get an answer, and then maybe you find out afterwards that you didn't have a great estimate, and somebody else's study has a better estimate, and then you learn this. That's what the scientific process is people publish studies, and then sometimes they're not replicable, and another study shows something else. So that's an okay method for finding stuff out that's not urgent, that you don't need to know right now. But to take that result of one study right now and make a bunch of public health decisions based on it in real time is not a good way to run your public health policy. Right. Because, you could have an accurate estimate from doing that, but nobody's done it before. So you don't really know how accurate it is. To know how accurate it is, you have to then, 5 years from now, compare it to what the actual is, go through and actually look at the data and compare it, and then you'll know whether or not you were accurate. Right. But you could have it wrong. It's really a problem. And I think that it speaks to sort of how much of this was, just ineptitude and bureaucracies moving slowly and hanging things up and causing problems rather than, I think there's a lot of tendency to think of it as this conspiracy to do that this was all planned and put together. And I don't know how you can listen to an assessment like this from Scott Gottlieb and come away with the impression that it's anything other than just inept, dumb bureaucrats making stupid decisions and panicking in the moment.
Yep.
I don't think that these people are capable of running a vast conspiracy. I just don't.
Yeah, no, I agree. And he says that. This is a great, it's on Fox, the Fox News Radio podcast. It's really a great, it's with Jessica Rosenthal. It's really a great interview. And he goes into how the CDC is not made for this, et cetera. And they were also the like you said, the emergency scared the hell out of him. I'm calling an audible, Alice. I can't let the non-Patreon people not hear Whitlock. I have other exclusive stuff for the Patreon people. A surprise that Michael Graham gave me that I'll do. But you got to hear.
And we have to break down Carano's claims to innocence.
Oh yes, that's right.
So that will be on the Patreon exclusive show also.
Okay. Yes. Okay. Obviously, we can say this right now. Much like the investigation into the Border Patrol people, there is an investigation, a non-biased investigation. We know how to do investigations. I can tell you that into Carano's tampering with little Jerry Callahan, which has been rebuffed now for the time being. Let's not call him Carano anymore because I don't like that. I like to use it conjures up something very negative to me. We're going to tell. Yes, it is Matt Murchison. He is in charge of all merch on the land. Okay, so this is Jason Whitlock. Jason Whitlock, if you don't know, this is one of Jerry's favorite guys, and he's a great guy. He's a great guy, great thinker. Jason Whitlock is now with the Blaze, and there's something called Fearless. Anyway, he was on with Dave Rubin today, and Whitlock talks about if he were Roger Goodell. Rubin asked him today if he were Roger Goodell, what are some of the things he'd do? Because, of course, Goodell has been Whitlock wants to save football because football could still stand on its own. It's not owned by China yet. It's not owned by other markets. It's still an American game. But Goodell, Whitlock's point, and he's right, is that the fans who love it have gotten nothing but a kick in the gut now every year for the past few years. And now they've gone all woke, etc. And Whitlock is saying this is BS. If I were in charge of the NFL, I would do things differently.
The difference between me and Roger Goodell is there's none of these idiots at ESPN. There's none of these idiots at the New York Times. None of them can out-talk me on race. They can't do it. I've listened to them. I've read Hannah Nicole Jones and the little stupid 1619 project. I can go all day with these guys and crush them. Ta-Nehisi Coates. That's why they're all cowards. They will not. These people. They won't come on and engage with people that disagree with them. They can stand toe-to-toe with them. They won't be mesmerized by their little word salads and will just keep it real. You get one of these black clowns, liberal clowns that go on TV and say, oh my God, the police are doing this and that. And I'm like, well, what hood have you been in? Because I can tell you where I came from. I can tell you where my daddy's business was in the hood. And we spent no time talking about, oh my God, the police may kill me tonight. Oh, that's some bullshit. And I would call it out. I got that. So you can't run. You're a little suburban Ivy League Negro who speculating about what goes on in the hood. I actually lived there. I actually understand. I still got family there. It's not something I just go visit maybe at Thanksgiving or whatever. And so I would clown suit the media and anybody else who challenged me on these issues. I would still be writing a column as the commissioner of the NFL, and anybody that opened up their mouth and wanted to give me any lip, I'd just light them up in a column and explain to them, okay, deal with that. Because I've seen people.
Okay, that's enough. I think that you get the point, right? It is really good too. I suggest people listen to that as well. Maybe I'll play the other part when I get the chance. So that is that. I just wanted to make sure you guys got to hear a little bit of that. All right, anything before we say goodbye to the non-Patreon folks on a Sunday? That was for football, by the way. That's why I got Jason Whitlock.
Yeah, football Sundays. We have been very remiss, actually, with watching football this football season so far.
You don't have to make a football conversation, Alice. You can just, if you have anything show-related you'd like to appreciate. I wasn't just handing off to you.
No, I'm good. Thank you. I'm good. We're heading over to the Patreon show. People who are live streaming on Patreon, just stay right there. That'll stay up and we'll finish up with you there. And if you are listening to the regular show, if you're a Patreon subscriber, you can head on over and listen to the bonus content over on Patreon. So we will see you over there, everybody. Other than that, you can check us out on Twitter, Facebook, burnbarrelpodcast.com, burnbarrelpodcast@gmail.com. You can buy little Jerry Callahan merchandise for the moment, all those good things.